The air was so heavy in that courtroom, you could feel it in your bones. Everyone sat frozen, breath held, as the judge cleared his throat and announced the next witness. Heads slowly turned toward the back. And there he was, Usher. Yes, that Usher. The Grammy-winning R&B heartthrob, the man who gave us Yeah and defined an entire era of soul pop swagger, was stepping forward. But not to perform. Not to reminisce on his career, and definitely not for a label dispute. No. He was here to talk about what really happened behind the velvet curtains of Sean Diddy Combs' twisted empire. And let's be clear, no one in that room was ready for what he was about to say. For decades, Usher had smiled through the interviews, deflected, dodged, acted like nothing was wrong. But now, with Diddy knee-deep in federal charges of trafficking, coercion, and orchestrating a criminal web of abuse, Usher decided it was time. Time to let the truth out, finally. His hands trembled as he adjusted the mic. "It's been eating me alive," he said, voice tight, eyes locking with the jury. "What I saw, what I lived through, it changed me." And then the room went silent as he took them all back to when it all began. He was just 14. 14. A baby, really, fresh off his debut album, bright-eyed and full of dreams. His mom had just told him he'd be heading to New York to live with a music mogul. The big break of a lifetime, a mentorship with Diddy, arranged by L.A. Reid himself. Everyone thought it would catapult Usher to stardom, fast-track his dreams. But what they didn't know, what none of them could have possibly imagined, was the kind of twisted, high-gloss hell Usher was walking into. "I thought I was going to learn how to be a star," he told the court. Champagne at breakfast. Strangers passed out on designer couches. Rooms no one had names for. Models, musicians, moguls, and others lounging around half-dressed like extras on a movie set. It was chaos, and it had a name. They called it Flavor Camp. Usher said, "I thought it was branding. Later, I realized it meant indulgence." The jury leaned in, stunned. Because the mentorship, it wasn't about artistry. It wasn't about vocals or choreography. It was about being indoctrinated into the lifestyle. "This is how we do it," Diddy had told him. "You don't ask, you watch. Learn by watching." That's how grown men roll. But what Usher saw would haunt him forever. And after that trip, Diddy changed. He became controlling. There were more rules, more strangers, more parties. And anytime Usher even hinted at resistance, he was reminded. "You don't bite the hand that feeds you," Diddy told him. "Remember who gave you this life." That's when Usher locked eyes with Diddy in court and said, "You didn't give me this life, you gave me nightmares." Then came the bombshell, the contract. At just 16, Usher said he was handed a confidentiality agreement, a so-called NDA to protect Bad Boy Records. But buried in that legal jargon, explicit restrictions about private events, what he could talk about, what he couldn't. "My mom had to co-sign," Usher said. "I didn't know what half of it even meant. But now, I know exactly what it was. A muzzle. That NDA bought his silence. For years, I wasn't allowed to talk about the parties, about the people, about anything. They said it would ruin the brand. But what about what it did to me? Phrases about audio-visual documentation, unauthorized reproduction, and with Diddy's rumored freak-off tape collection, those words suddenly felt sinister. "That document made me feel like I was crazy," Usher said. "Like what I saw, what I felt wasn't real, because I wasn't allowed to say it." And then he dropped another bombshell, the mansion party in Atlanta. He was 17. It was supposed to be another A-list event. Celebrities, DJs, champagne. But behind one locked door, Usher saw something he'll never forget. There were people in masks, that's all I'll say. Then, a chilling confession. "I think that night changed me," Usher said, his voice cracking. "I saw things I still can't explain. I don't know if it was leisure, but I know it wasn't right." After that haunting Atlantic night, Usher told the court he began writing things down. Not songs, not ideas, but memories, observations, secrets. The prosecutor leaned in. "Did you ever tell anyone about these entries?" Usher shook his head. "I was afraid of losing everything. I didn't think anyone would believe me. So why now? Why speak now, after all these years?" Usher looked up with glassy eyes. "Because I've lived with it long enough, and it's time the truth comes out." And then came the story that shattered the courtroom. An encounter he'd never shared, not with friends, not with family. It was 1997, Usher was 18. Diddy told him he'd arranged a meeting in Miami, a major opportunity, a wealthy international investor who could fund Usher's world tour. "I thought it was about business," Usher said. "Diddy hyped it up like it was the biggest break of my life." He arrived at a posh penthouse at the Setai Hotel. Inside, 3 men in robes and champagne. Young women seated quietly in the background. One man looked at Usher and said, "Do you want to be remembered forever?" Usher went silent. He wasn't talking about music, he said. Then he dropped the nuclear moment. Diddy left him there, alone. And that's when he realized. And staying famous in Diddy's world meant doing what you were told. Then Usher's voice cracked. "This part is the hardest because it's not about me anymore." The court leaned in. He was talking about Justin Bieber. At the start, Usher loved mentoring Justin, wanted to be the big brother he never had. But then Diddy got involved. He started inviting Justin to parties, called it Flavor Camp, just like he did with me. Justin was 15. They were treating him like a grown man. Then one night in 2011, Usher got a phone call. It was Bieber, no words, just breathing. Then, finally, a whisper, "I want to come home." Usher's team tried tracking him, but Bieber disappeared for 2 days. When they met again, Bieber wouldn't meet his eyes. He just said, "It's fine, I'm good now." But Usher knew he wasn't. He confronted Diddy point blank. "What are you doing to these kids?" Diddy laughed. "Same thing they did to me. That's how the game works." Usher stepped back, tried to walk away, tried to protect what was left of himself. But in 2018, the threats returned. An anonymous call, a raspy voice. "Tell him to keep his mouth shut, or we'll shut it for him." Who made the call? Usher didn't flinch. He looked straight at the defense table. "I think you know." Then came the most chilling story of them all. The party that changed everything. A hidden estate in the Hollywood Hills. Usher thought he was meeting a European producer, but there were no executives, no music. Just a dimly lit mansion. Security at every corner, and a strange series of NDAs shoved into every guest's hand. Usher signed it. Phones were confiscated, and what he saw would never leave him. There were people there who weren't artists. They weren't executives. They were just observers. He recognized some of the faces, big names, but he didn't say them. And then the moment that broke him, he tried to leave the party. A man blocked him, brought him to a side room where Diddy was waiting. "You're not ready yet," Diddy said. "You still think this is about music. This is bigger than that." Usher left and never attended another Diddy party again. He then turned the spotlight on Diddy's business dealings, contracts, exploitation. He revealed he'd signed away the rights to his masters until he was 35. "I didn't know what I was signing," Usher said. "I just wanted to sing." Then he named names: Carl Thomas, Toto, Black Rob, Craig Mack, artists who were chewed up and tossed aside. He said Diddy reeled them in with promises of mentorship, then discarded them when they questioned anything. Usher even shared that an accountant once showed him missing royalties totaling over $4,300,000, 0 cents. When he confronted Diddy, Diddy laughed. "If you knew what I really owed you, you wouldn't sleep at night." Then Usher dropped a final bomb. In 2011, he tried to hold a private meeting with other former Bad Boy artists, a secret gathering to address the exploitation. But it never happened because someone tipped Diddy off. He even witnessed Diddy order the destruction of demo tapes and footage from an artist who threatened to speak out. That artist vanished. I don't know where he is. Nobody does. But I remember his voice. I remember that he was scared. The courtroom was still. And then came the final gut punch. The question, "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Usher's answer, "Because I thought I owed him. I thought if I stayed silent, I could move on and still be grateful." But then he looked up, trembling. "You can't be grateful for a lie." The courtroom had heard enough to silence an entire industry. But Usher wasn't finished, not yet. Because what he was about to reveal next was the part nobody had ever heard. The part nobody had ever even suspected. At the peak of his fame, in the golden era just after dropping his smash hit album 8701 in 2001, Usher vanished. Gone. 1 full week. No press, no shows, no explanations. Industry insiders brushed it off. "Oh, he's just taking a break," they said. Tour burnout? But in court, Usher exposed the truth. He hadn't gone on vacation. He had checked himself into a private mental health facility in Northern California under a fake name. Because he was falling apart. "I started having panic attacks," Usher admitted. Flashing lights. Then one night in a New York hotel, coincidentally the same building where one of Diddy's infamous parties had once been held, everything came crashing down. "I stepped into the hallway," Usher said, his voice quivering, "and I smelled the same brand of candles Diddy used to burn. My whole body froze. I started shaking. I couldn't breathe. That night, his team rushed him to a private clinic. He stayed there for 5 days, and what he told the in-house psychiatrist was something he had never told anyone before. I said, I saw things no kids should see. I lived in a world where power meant silence and survival meant smiling through it. And that house wasn't just a crash pad, he whispered. It was a place where dreams were sold, post-traumatic stress disorder from living with Diddy as a teenager. The courtroom gasped, fans watching from outside devastated, because suddenly everything made sense. The isolation, the disappearances, the years when Usher seemed distant, guarded. He wasn't being Hollywood. He was healing. I went through 2 years of therapy, Usher told the court, just to be able to sleep through the night. And here's what broke everyone in the courtroom. He wasn't the only one. I won't name them, he said, but I know others. Young artists who lived similar nightmares. One overdosed, another attempted suicide, a third just vanished. They were afraid, just like I was. But unlike me, they didn't have the money to get help. The attorney asked, why didn't you say any of this in 2001? Usher didn't blink, because nobody would have believed me. He was speaking for every young artist who ever walked into a studio with stars in their eyes and walked out with trauma they couldn't name. The courtroom was silent, not from disbelief, but because everyone knew this was bigger than one man. This isn't just about Diddy, Usher said. It's about an entire system, one that told kids like me to stay quiet, to play nice, to never question the hand that fed us. He looked around the room, eyes glassy, voice low. But I'm here now, and I'm not afraid anymore. And then, his final words that ripped through the courtroom like thunder. I'm not doing this for me, Usher said, voice breaking, because I already lived through it. The court was frozen. Reporters, victims, onlookers, even the judge. You could hear a pin drop, but deep down, everyone knew. This wasn't just a testimony, it was a reckoning. A reckoning for an industry that had hidden too many sins behind platinum plaques and Grammy gold. A reckoning for every young voice that was silenced behind velvet ropes. And a reckoning for a man who, after all these years, finally found the strength to speak. Not just as a star, not just as a victim, but as a survivor and a truth teller. Because while Diddy's trial may have started as a case about racketeering and trafficking, it had now become something far bigger. A mirror held up to the entire music industry, and a chilling reminder that sometimes the brightest lights shine on the darkest secrets.